We're supposed to learn more at about 10 a.m. at a live news conference. That will happen at Cloquet City Hall at the police department. Now, if you take a look behind me here, the scene is a little bit more quiet here at the Super 8 in Cloquet. President Biden walked down the stairs off of Air Force One first, but right behind him were Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin, as well as Minnesota Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. If you take a look over here, there are still crews on scene. We have several fire trucks and ambulances out here just outside the Applebee's and the Barnes & Noble here at the mall. Now, as you can see, this is what the sailors see when they're out on Lake Superior, the waters of Lake Superior, and they travel the entire lake. There's about over 30 yachts that made that journey. But they have open play throughout the week on Mondays and Thursdays, Monday mornings, Thursday evenings. I'm getting a workout here, as you can see, folks. Roan says between 700 and 800 ships pass through the port each year. Right now, we're sitting at about 468, which is down compared to years past. Frozen and fresh turkeys are usually heavy in weight, but this year, they're also heavy in price. With some birch bark, resin, and some elbow grease, Rebecca Rush has transformed what you can usually find on the North Shore of Lake Superior into ornaments like this one. Some of the biggest names in American history have performed right here on the stage at Denfeld High School, from former President Richard Nixon to Johnny Cash, but it's the theater students here that aren't able to use it. It takes a dedicated group of folks to get rinks like this one up and running, to get players to the big leagues. For most students, a normal package for portraits costs about $350. But for most seniors, those pictures are priceless. Big waves on the biggest Great Lake.
Well, I specifically wanted to see the waves. It's been on my bucket list for a long time to see the waves.
Christine Wahlberg came up from the Twin Cities for the weekend to check out the Whitecaps.
And you really feel how small you are and just a sense of how powerful the water and the lake is.
That power destroyed Duluth's iconic lake walk just a few years ago when a series of storms washed away parts of the shoreline.
To get farther away from the damage, we raised everything up, so we retreated vertically from the lake.
Mike LeBeau is an engineer for the city and helped craft the lake walk you see today. He says in weather like this, the changes are proving their worth.
When we get down there, what we added mostly was over 100,000 tons of rock.
Those rocks break up the big waves so that the trails and lights aren't damaged. They also constructed a new seawall to stop the waves, like the ones from Thursday's storm. But LeBeau says he doesn't know what will happen in the future.
You know, their engineers' predictions are 50 to 75 years minimum.
And while the lake walk gives Northlanders scenic walks all year round, it helps keep the city safe from millions of gallons of water.
This is so different than anything that's been ever built here before. It's so massive, really robust.
I felt that I was okay to drive.
That's the same excuse Officer Todd Simmons with Duluth PD hears all the time when stopping people for potential DWIs.
There was 124 deaths, drunk driving deaths in Minnesota last year, and we're seeing an uptick in those numbers.
And that uptick is concerning for Simmons, who looks for some key signs when he suspects a drunk driver.
Jerking of the wheels, wide turns, varying speeds.
He says it's because impaired drivers are trying to concentrate more than normal.
But it could be a number of things, like a failure to signal or a stop sign is another big violation.
Over 117 people were caught last year by Officer Simmons driving behind the wheel under the influence. And he says this year he's on par to break that record.
There's signs that you watch out for, obviously slurred speech, wobbling when they're walking a little bit, things like that.
Keith Kern is the president of the Tavern League Wisconsin. He says he personally hasn't seen more impaired people get behind the wheel this year He knows there's also a need for programs to stop it from happening.
Safe Ride program is a program that was created by the State of Wisconsin Tavern League quite a few years ago.
They give out free rides.
The bar does, if they are participating, we do charge $4 for that voucher, and then the Tavern League picks up the rest of the expense.
Back in Duluth, Officer Simmons says, have a game plan before you go out.
Our goal is to encourage people to have a plan to get home safely rather than risk it getting into a vehicle and hurting someone or yourself.